I thought we had to have a little theme music. So I want to thank our hosts who've been terrific all week. And I also like to thank the audience because you've shown your commitment by spending the entire day here, really committed to learning and also very task committed to all the different talks. What I'd like to do is talk a little bit about youth gambling today and show you with respect to internet gambling what we've been doing. Just some other information. For the last 20 years, we've been trying to look at the risk and protective factors that have gone into understanding youth gambling issues, and we've developed prevention programs and treatment programs. And it just so happens that one of our books, early books, actually has been translated into Korean. So that would provide some more additional information for any of you that might be interested. The question really is, should we be concerned about adolescent gambling in general and adolescent online gambling? And just to kind of give you an idea, the spectrum we can have from non-gambling or no gambling all the way down to compulsive gambling, problem gambling, pathological gambling, and now in DSM-5 we call it disordered gambling. We don't go from no gambling all the way to compulsive or disordered gambling. It's a progressive disorder. It takes time to go, and this becomes part of the issues. So why should we be concerned? Well, first, this is the first generation of young people that will grow up their entire lives in which gambling is not only legal, but is socially acceptable and has multiple forms of gambling. I just want to show you this very quickly. The numbers don't really matter all that much, but if you look at alcohol use, which is the first one, then drug use and cigarette use and gambling. If you ask young people what their total use, in your entire lifetime, have you ever done any of these behaviors? Grade 7 is about 12 years of age, right through to 17 years of age. And what you could see here is as you get older, you tend to have engaged in a variety of behaviors. But look where gambling is. Gambling is the highest amongst all the other potentially risky behaviors. And what's interesting, it's flat, but it's flat high, meaning kids start gambling at a much earlier age than engaging in substance use, alcohol use, tobacco use. If you look at the weekly side, you would expect the weekly numbers to decrease, which happens again. But once again, gambling is relatively high right across the board. So one of the questions we ask is, why do kids gamble in general? And what we found was that if you go from children who are about 10 years of age all the way again to about 17 years of age, the orange line is the one that shows enjoyment. When we first began to look at gambling, we always thought kids gambled to make money because they have very little opportunity to make money. The reality is they're gambling for the enjoyment and they're gambling for the excitement. Yes, money is also important. If you ask adults why they gamble, they tell you the exact same thing. So today's youth look like this. And in fact, I think there's been like an evolutionary change in children's development as well, because I've never seen a group of people who have the fastest thumbs in the world. They text faster than I can speak. And we've got a generation of kids who've grown up on computers, on iPads, on cell phones, mobile phones. And gambling has become normalized in our society. What we know is that in a recent study in Korea, what we found, not we found, but Rob Williams found that internet gambling is still relatively low, but that gambling, past year gambling, is still fairly high. And what do we know about the internet? Well, certainly we know it's widespread, it's inexpensive or relatively inexpensive. It's anonymous, it's convenient, it's entertaining, and can be used for many purposes, one of which becomes gambling. Another one is gaming, as we've been talking about all morning or all afternoon. If you look at internet addiction amongst youth in South Korea in a somewhat older study, what they found was the video games are a highly popular social activity. We know that. You have gaming rooms. We know that the role-playing games are very, very important. But there are other kinds of games, and that's what I'd like to talk to you about today as well. Major tournaments are televised, and about 10.7% have internet addiction to social games in general. But gambling's also become glamorized in our society, and so we have people like Mr. Bond here, who always has some relationship with gambling and very popular in terms of the movies. We have different games that you can play on consoles. What I'd like you to look at, though, is at the bottom here. Unfortunately, the pointer's not working. But if you look at the PlayStation number 2, you look at the bottom, it says 3+, meaning this is good for a 3-year-old. So we're teaching kids very young to how to play casino-type games. And as previously discussed, one of the reasons, motivating factors for social games is they have to be enjoyable, they have to be exciting, they have to be able to be played for a long time, and I'm going to come back to that as well. So wagering on the internet could take many, many different forms. You could play poker on the internet, you could do casino games, you could do sports wagering, and so forth and so on. So the internet is a vast array of opportunities for individuals to gamble. And in spite of the fact that online gambling is prohibited in a number of jurisdictions, young people have found ways in order to do that. They can use their credit cards. If they have a credit card, they could use a parent's credit card. They can use their PayPal account. You can actually buy telephone calling cards, which are really not telephone calling cards. They're used to pay for the internet. We know that Facebook is an important issue, very important to kids. And Facebook has many, many different online social games as well as online actual games. So the new face of internet gambling looks something like this. This is just one from a website. We could see that every screen on an iPad or on an Android can actually become a gambling table, gambling opportunity. In addition to gambling on the internet for money, you can also play for fun, simulated gambling types of activities. And I just picked a couple randomly. Here's one, party poker, play for free, win for real. So you can actually play, and what young people have been telling us, they use this as a training ground. We're using this to learn how to gamble. Here's another one from PokerStars, the #1 online poker site in the world. Play online poker for free. So the question then is internet gambling problematic? And I'll show you some data. The first slide here shows playing these gambling simulated games without money. This is for fun. Now, in order to keep it fun, in order to keep you playing, what do we know? There's been a number of research studies done by my colleagues that show the payout rates are actually much better. So if you play for fun, you actually win a lot more. And if you're a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old and you're playing these things and your points are going up and your chip piles are going up, what goes through your mind? If I was only playing for real money, look how much money I would have made. So if we look at internet gambling without money, because you could be a non-gambler and still play these things because it's not being played for money, if you look at that, if you look at progressively, this is a linear trend, going from non-gambling all the way to problem gambling. So 34% of non-gamblers have reported to us that they've actually played these online sites, online gambling sites without money. Those numbers go up to 81% for individuals who have severe gambling problems. Well, what about for money? And what we found is the same kind of linear trend. Obviously, if you're a non-gambler, you can't be gambling for money. We define gambling as risking money, wagering money in order to win money. And the numbers go up. So 35% in this particular study that we found, or 8% overall, but 35% of those individuals who we've identified as having severe, significant gambling problems actually report gambling online. Now, the million-dollar question is, does online gambling actually cause problem gambling, or do problem gamblers just gamble online? And the reality is there's abundant research now suggesting it's probably some of both. We know that online gamblers, adults as well as young people who gamble online, will also gamble on other land-based type activities. We know that young people are gambling amongst themselves, especially boys are gambling around sports wagering. Obviously, this is a very detailed slide, but what I wanted to present to you is there's research from Canada, the UK, the US, Iceland, and other countries now that actually show the prevalence of online gambling. Males are doing it more than females, although females are actually catching up, but also that the prevalence rates amongst adolescents are actually somewhat higher than that of adults. So why are they gambling online? Well, they're gambling online for a wide variety of reasons: accessibility, availability, privacy, convenience. All these are important issues for young people. They can't sneak into a casino so easily. And in jurisdictions where you can actually do sports betting, it's very difficult. But if you're online, you can engage in these behaviors. One teenager came to me and said, "You're not going to believe what happened to me yesterday. I was doing my homework and I went on a different online gambling site and it asked me for my age. And silly me, I typed in my real age, and because he was underage, it came back and said, 'Are you sure that's your birthday?'" So kids actually figure out how to do this. There's some clinical evidence. A young man walked into my office wearing this hat, baseball cap. I said, "That's a very nice baseball cap." He said, "You know, if you lose $10,000, they'll send you one for free." An expensive baseball cap. Well, what are the consequences of problem gambling for adolescents? Well, you could see here it comes from financial, personal, work and studies, interpersonal, and in fact, legal as well. I want to just quickly turn, because I don't have much time, to some social casino gamers, though. Because one of the things that we're looking at now with Michael Wall and some of his colleagues, and we've done some studies with Dan King and others in Australia, we're looking at whether or not kids and young people who play these social casino games actually migrate over to gambling sites. And the answer is basically yes. We know there are 170 million social casino gamers. That's well over triple the number of online gamblers. And we know that the outcomes are not really based on chance, but really designed to prolong play. And so if they were winning on these